without further ado, I will allow our panelists to give an introduction of themselves, and I'll start with Monica Musonda. Monica, welcome to this session.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Great,
so Monica, how would you describe yourself? Who is Monica Musonda?
Yeah, so I'm a passionate Zambian entrepreneur who really believes in our people, our So I think that's how I would describe myself. But if you want me to give a little bit of background onto myself, is that what you'd like?
Yes, please. Would like for you to give a brief background of yourself.
Sure. So I started Java Foods in 2012. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Java Foods, which is a food processing business based here in Lusaka, Zambia. Our mission or our core values really center around affordable nutrition, about increasing local production using locally sourced raw materials, about innovation, about enhancing value for our customers, for our shareholders, and for our suppliers and community. That is what we do. That is who we are as Java. Many of you may know our products. Easy Instant Noodle is our leading product, has been in the market for some time. And recently we began manufacturing a fortified nutritional porridge called Super Cereal. And it's now made for retail as well as for school feeding programs around the country. I am also a non-executive director on several boards. Some of them are listed companies, some of them are unlisted and NGOs. I'm a 2013 Young Global Leader with the World Economic Forum, as well as a Desmond Tutu Fellow. I mentor young women when I have some spare time on empowerment, on entrepreneurship, and I speak on several forums. And actually by training, I was a lawyer some time ago. So it all started with law school and has ended up here.
Thank you so much for that brief description, Monica. I'll allow our second panelist to introduce themselves. Mukwandi Chibesakunda, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mukwandi Chibesakunda. I'm actually a former Unza student, so it gives me great pride and joy to talk to Unzabeca. I can't remember whether I was actually a member of Unzabeca or not, but I studied economics at the University of Zambia. So I can identify with a lot of the students who may be listening to us today. And what I do recall is that we didn't have the opportunity to people who were operating within the formal sector at that point. And I'm hoping that through this engagement, we can be able to inspire and encourage those of you who are looking at what next following your university degree, and perhaps beyond just the formal employment sector, even business and entrepreneurship. I'm currently the Chief Executive Officer at Zanaco, having spanned a career of 2 decades. Some of you are well younger than that. And so I think we do bring a wealth of experience in terms of what we've gone through in the past. So that's a bit about me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mukwandi, for that brief description. And we are honored as Unzabeca to be hearing from you both. I'm also aware that Monica was also at the University of Zambia, so it's really nice to hear from you alumni today. Without further ado, we'll get into the panel discussion. And how this is going to go is Elizabeth will lead us through this panel discussion, and we have collected a few questions from our students, and we hope that at the end of the panel discussion, we'll then be taking live questions and answering them. So Elizabeth, over to you.
Sorry, Rhoda, to interrupt. I was going to say, maybe try to turn off your video because I think your bandwidth is going in and out. So if you want to turn off your video, we might be able to hear you better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Monica. Is it better now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, would you like to come in for the panel discussion now?
Sure, let's get right into it. So our discussion is on entrepreneurship, on career changes, on finance, and on on those three. So first of all, let's get into career changes. For those of you who may not have heard, Monica was a lawyer and is now an entrepreneur. So let's get right into it. First question, how would you differentiate between needing a career change and needing a new job within the same field?
Okay, and that's a really great question. I think we have to go back to basics and understand where in the course of your career or your working journey you are. If you're at the very beginning of your journey, I think the aspect that you really have to look at why you want to change your career or get a new job in a different field. So when often starting out, there's a sense of, you are in this path. You could either be a lawyer, an economics professional, and therefore you lean towards those areas. So I can give an example. So I started off in law. I got a law degree, and then I went to Ziale. And for me, the path then was to start my legal professional career. And so I had an option of either going into private practice, to go and work for a corporation, or to work for government as an in-house government lawyer. But the issue was, at the time, because it was very early on in my journey, what I was focusing on was much more in gaining experience. So I think those are the things you want to ask yourself about where you are in your life. Are you in a job to gain experience? Have you gained enough experience? Are you enjoying what you studied and what you're working on? Do you see yourself progressing in this career? Do you see yourself in 5 years still in the same sector? So I think that the aspect of changing a career, you really have to ask yourself, is it the right time to change completely, to go into a new sector? Have you gathered enough of a basis to go into another sector? Or is it early enough that you could actually jump into a different sector and gain something there? But I think it's really about understanding where you are in your journey. Sometimes they say is don't make the leap too soon, and also be motivated by the right reasons. I think what we often worry about is if you're motivated by kwacha and ingwe. Because I think that the issue is, if you're motivated purely about money, you will jump from job to job, and will not be able to really gain enough good, stable experience to able to let you get on through your journey. So I think you also have to know what's really motivating you, and really do the hard work. I think you have to show a sense of stability somewhere, to show someone, if you're going to change, that you're able to perform and deliver. You're able to be relied upon. You have some knowledge that person may want, and sometimes jumping around too soon doesn't help you. So I hope I hope I've answered your question somewhat.
Yes, you have. So let's say, for example, you served in this career, you feel like you've reached your maximum potential in this particular field. So now you want to move to a new career. So practically speaking, what's the safest way to take the leap into a new career? I mean, I know there's no obvious.
So when you say a new career, it's not a new job. Is it completely different path? Is that what you're saying? So staying, if you're a finance professional, is that going into a different area, or a complete change? To become from finance to go to fashion. Is that what you're?
Yes, a complete change. Or we can do both, from new part of your career to an entirely different field.
So look, I think there's no right or wrong answer. There's no perfect time to change. I think a number of things have to make sense to you. And I always look at the very core of yourself and say to you, are you learning from where you are? Do you enjoy it? Are you growing? Is there progression? Do you see yourself in this profession in the next few years? And if the answer to those sorts of questions is no, then I think you can begin to look at elsewhere. So it's nothing is linear in life, and nothing is also black and white. So many things change, but I think you really have to ask yourself critical questions. Is, if I take a completely different career path, is it going to look after me and my obligations? Is this the right time on a personal level to change? How will it be if it doesn't work? If my plan B doesn't work, can I go back to my plan A, or is there a plan C? So those are the things I think you really have to interrogate yourself and find out, is it the right time for you to have a change? And actually, lots of people don't change, right? A lot of people get very comfortable and become actually experts in their field. And that's also very, very good.
That's true. That's true. So more personally, what do you think are some lessons that you've learned from your career transition?
Okay, I think I was very much a risk taker. So for many years, so I moved countries, not just jobs, but I also moved countries. So I started off in working for government, and then I went to work for them in the UK and then South Africa, and then I moved to work for a development finance institution in a completely different country. So for me, some of the lessons I learned was that be very clear about what you want to gain, because sometimes the leaps are really big and can actually shatter everything. So I mean, it wasn't just country, it was not just jobs, but countries, culture. I was a young lady on my own as well. So I think I learned also that do calculated risk, understand why you're making the change. So I interrogated myself. I also had a very, my parents were very keen supporters of how I was progressing. And so we often had discussions about what it was that was motivating me to make certain decisions. I also knew very clearly where I wanted to be. And that's why I made those moves. I mean, for me to move from Johannesburg, from being a partner in a law firm, to be working as in-house counsel in Washington at the Development Finance Institution, the reason I did that was because I wanted more international experience. You know, I wanted to do work in other countries, and I felt by staying in Johannesburg, I wasn't going to get that. So what I knew is be very clear in what you want to gain from the move. And I was also young enough to make those moves. So I knew that if it didn't work out, I had a plan B, right? But fortunately, all of the risks I took when I was a lawyer did actually work out. And even when I changed to become an entrepreneur, it took longer to work out, but I think it hasn't ended up too badly.
Yeah, great. So for those who may feel like they're too old to switch to a new career, or to try something new, or to take large risks, would you say that they would need more support or more input from people outside who they're directly, let's say, who are directly depending on them, or yeah?
So look, I don't know what it means when you say you're too old. I mean, I made my change in my mid-30s to become, I worked as a lawyer for 16 years. And then that's really hard to move when you're very comfortable, have a very good paycheck, you're quite senior in your profession, to leave that all behind. But I made the move, and I was in my mid-30s. So I think there's never an age where it feels right. But again, it's more about calculated risks. I think it's more about interrogating your personal circumstances, and also what you want to achieve. So, and actually what's really interesting, if you look at many of the very successful entrepreneurs around the world, many of them are actually successful much older. And that's because a lot of them did get initial experiences working for others and gaining that experience. So I think that has worked very well for many others. But they're also the unicorns. Like, look at Mark Zuckerberg, right? He didn't even finish school, and he's created one of the most significant businesses in our time. And he dropped out of university and became, before he was 30, was a multi-billionaire, right? So there's no perfect paradigm. There's no perfect, answer to that. But I think really, it just depends on when it feels right, when you've interrogated certain questions, and when you can do certain things.
That's true. You've talked a lot about taking calculated risks. Have you ever been in a situation where you made a mistake, or you made a mistake that made you question your career choices or your career transition? How did you work through it?
Look, I'm an entrepreneur. Like for the first 2 or 3 years of my building Java, I had no money. And this is coming from a very high platform to zero. I mean, going to borrow money from my father. So I had a real life-changing experience of really realizing what it felt to have nothing, yet to have come from a very high position. But it's all part of the transition. It's all part of the journey as well. So I'm probably won't be the first to have gone through that or the last. And it was really a clear you go through it because you're still trying to understand how a business works, trying to build network, trying to really, prove concepts. So, you lose a lot, but then in the long run you gain. And remember, entrepreneurship is not quick. It's a long road, so you will have many disappointments in the beginning. It will teach you to eat humble pie, and then it gets a bit better. We're still not out of the woods, right? But I think it definitely gets better from here.
Okay, so entrepreneurs always seek to solve problems. How did you find yourself with Java Foods? What inspired you to build and grow Java Foods?
So when I moved back, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what sector I was going to play in, but I did know I wanted, as you say, to solve a problem. I wanted to create impact. I wanted to create jobs. I wanted to create a brand, right? So I think what I looked at was really the market and to really understand what was happening around us. And I think a few key things stood out. We're a very young country. About 60% of our population is below the age of 35, which means that the youth or young people really, your decisions matter. So you're looking for businesses to be innovative. You're looking at businesses also to remember you in their product design and development. And that was also nice because it meant we could be really innovative. We could be different. We could try something, completely crazy, and it could actually work because young people are just that much more creative and just that much more willing to try something new. So I thought that was a plus. The second plus is that Zambia grows maize, wheat, soya very well on an annual basis, and I knew I wanted to work with those sort of local crops but do something around them. I also looked around about where people were buying their food. So we're seeing more and more across the country, particularly along the line of rail. We're seeing a lot more shopping malls. We're seeing people happily go into a ShopRite, happily go into a Pick and Pay because they know, one, the food they buy there is good quality. It is the same price whether you're in Mansa, Mongo, or Lusaka, and it doesn't matter where you are, you can still get the product. So all those things were real factors into really making me think about what I needed to do. And also the last thing is that all of us are pretty busy, and people don't really have time to prepare meals which take an hour. So we were really looking at something which was quick and convenient and affordable. And for us as a first product, that's why noodles was a great first product, because it answered all of these issues around innovation, around convenience, around affordability, around nutrition as well.
So for a product with such a large target market, in terms of capital and finance sourcing, do you think is the ecosystem doing enough to support these ventures?
So look, I think in the beginning stages, they're probably not enough. I think we've come a long way. I think it's, funding early startup businesses is really quite a science on its own, which people are trying to understand. I mean, a lot of startups fail. And I think what we need to start seeing a lot more of is early startup VC, venture capital funds, a lot more angel investing. So angel investing will be people who believe in your concept and are willing to back you in the very early stages to get your concept to a business stage. And then at business stage, you look to bigger funders such as banks, etc. And we need to see a lot more of those. And we need to see a lot more local angel investors. We have very high net worth individuals in Zambia who could spare 10,000 kwacha for someone's great idea, but we need to actually get them together in almost like an angel network that people can then come and pitch ideas to them and say, I'm looking for 50,000 kwacha for this initial idea. Please help me get it to a business which I can scale. So we see this very much in other countries. Also, we see a lot of business plan competitions. So I have friends in the the US who bootstrap their businesses, like they do hair business, etc., purely by winning competitions. So I mean, I definitely encourage people like Bongo Hive or others to really continue to do business plan competitions. It actually funds a lot of small businesses.
Okay, speaking of banks, Mrs. Chibesakunda, are you still with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Okay, so let's get into it. Still on business and entrepreneurship, do you think it's important for an entrepreneur or a business person to have an appetite for risk?
Yes, absolutely. In anything that you do, you take a risk. When you walk out of the house and you cross the road, you're taking a risk. The nature of life is that you're always taking a risk. And the nature of business is that there is inherent risk. What financial services providers tend to do is to identify where the areas of risk may come from. And in that process, identify how they can support the businesses to mitigate the risk. Now, as the Zambia National Commercial Bank, or ZANACO, what we tend to do is to identify products that then cater for different risk families. And in so doing, helping whoever it is that may be a client on the other side mitigate the risk. So as an example, as a student, if you have an account, then you're not as likely to spend all your money when you receive your bursaries, because then you save some for later. So there are so many ways in which you can mitigate risk. First of all, whatever money that you receive, you mitigate the risk of expenditure. Whatever else you may be doing with your finances, you mitigate the risk that you make the wrong decisions. So there's so many areas where we help to mitigate risk. And in business itself, there is the risk that you'll lose money and you won't be able to sustain the business. And at the end of the day, the whole point of running a business is that you should be able to grow the business and get it to a point where it's then generating sufficiently to take care of all the business needs or your needs and to grow. So within business and entrepreneurship, there is risk. There is risk in everything. But what you're able to do is then identify a partner who can help to mitigate the risk.
Thank you for answering that. So how do you manage to keep your business running with the market being flooded by both domestic and foreign competition?
I think what needs to be very clear is the value proposition. What is it that we're offering our customers? So for example, as ZANACO, we start with the products. We try to make sure that we match our products to the needs of the customers. We make sure that we try as much as possible to make our products innovative, convenient, and to actually deliver the value that the customer expects in terms of the solutions. And as long as you're able to then deliver that value, you will.
For us, like in the food sector, it's about making sure you keep a certain standard. And therefore, if you're the big guy on the block and there's no one else there, then, you know, you can sometimes slack a little bit and almost take the market for granted. So for us, we really like competition. It means that we have to keep on innovating. We have to keep on pushing forward. We have to keep on ensuring we speak to the customer, understand what they want, some of what other flavors, where they want it, how they want it, what size, and things like that. But also, I think, as Mukwandi has said, there's certain key values that keep a customer coming back. And I think it's one would be quality. Two is that you speak to you understand your customer. And I can give an example to that. It's simple things like flavors. I think Zambians have a very distinct flavor profile and they like certain things. And so we believe here at Java that we understand that and we offer that better than our competitors because we understand our market better. We also understand pricing, for instance. So we understand that if, for instance, you're a student, you're not about to spend 30 kwacha on a meal. But you are about to spend, you may spend in a day, you may spend 10 kwacha or 5. And therefore we are able then to offer that proposition. We're also about consistency. So you want to make sure you're able to see the product wherever you are, not only in Lusaka, on the copper belt, and it tastes the same. So the consistency is not only about what it looks like, where you find it, the price, but it tastes the same. And so I think those are a few issues which we kind of looked at in terms of keeping the competition away. But definitely, I think also being proudly Zambian helps. And I think the way we're seeing Zambians making decisions around consumption patterns, around really thinking about Zambian products first, has also really helped us.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. It's very good to know. So for the both of you, in as much as you may have a good product or a good service, how important is it to realize financial literacy at an early stage of business? And what are some key things you'd like to share on financial literacy when it comes to business and just in general?
At Zanako, we take financial literacy very seriously. And we believe that if you're educated, you're more likely to make the right decisions. So we drive financial literacy quite aggressively. We have partnered with Bongo Hive, we have partnered with Unzabeca. The whole point of these exercises are to actually drive financial literacy and to make people aware of how to use money. It also starts at a very young age. People need to be able to handle funds and be able to handle savings from a very young age to be able to be comfortable with money. So financial literacy is critical. It's part of financial inclusion and how you can make sure that everybody is comfortable with their money. And we believe that if you're educated, then you stand a better chance of being able to handle your finances better in future and not getting into the wrong kind of debt and being unable to handle whatever financial needs you may have, both as a business and as an individual.
Monica, would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mukwandi has definitely got it, has said everything that needs to be said about it. I think it's something which I previously, like when I was growing up, it was something we didn't really focus on. I think we focused more on core skills, core educational skills, and very late in life did we then begin to talk about financial literacy and understanding the options which were available to us. Because I think literacy is really important, not only about managing personal funds, but imagine if you then run a business and you're handling other people's money, that you borrowed money, and you have to understand how to pay it back, what it means to pay interest, what it means to even be profitable. I mean, how do you become profitable in real kwacha and ingwe sense? That is being financially literate. Understanding when you've taken too little money, and it doesn't really impact on the business, or when you've taken too much and that it's drowning you, or what if this money is too expensive. And we've seen that with a lot of the money lenders or quote unquote loan sharks, that the actual fact, if you're going to borrow for consumption or on a personal level, and you're borrowing at 40% per month, the likelihood is that you're not going to be able to manage that. But you only understand that if you understand finances, you understand the literacy of it. And I think we need to do a lot more. And there's actually a lot going on right now around financial literacy with the banks, with financial sector deepening Zambia, which is they're mandated to look into financial inclusion with the Bank of Zambia. And it's not just talking about finances, but it's also talking about savings, that you should in future, when you're earning a salary, 50% must go to your survival, but you must always save some money for the long haul, things like that. And it's also really, really important. What are you saving for? Are you saving for education? Are you saving for a down payment for a mortgage? Are you saving for children? Are you saving for a business? And I think these are things which we need to be much more open to, and really just try as much as possible to learn more about. Because it is going to be a very helpful skill, no matter what you do, no matter if you're in a job, if you're running a business, or you're unemployed, all is going to be a very useful skill.
That's very true. Right now, there's a huge surge in financial literacy programs. What implications do you think this will have on the Zambian economy, from households to firms, not just in terms of making better investment decisions?
Sorry, is that for Mukwandi or is that for me?
That's actually for both of you. So
Okay.
you can feel free to speak first.
So I think you summarized it. I think definitely encouraging financial literacy is definitely about making better financial decisions, encouraging savings, as I've talked about, which puts more money in the economy for different things. Also reducing things like debt when you don't need the debt. I think smart investing, smart use of money, growing savings for, that rainy day, understanding things like what's a pension, all those great things, which comes with being financially literate.
I would add to that a lot of the time as financial services providers, we find that people get into debt without fully understanding exactly what the implications are. And so financial literacy actually helps people to understand what the risks are and what to do to mitigate those risks. So I'll give an example of village banking, which has recently increased in our market. What has happened is that people haven't really understood the extent of the risk that they're taking by entrusting their funds to perhaps one single person or a group of people who they haven't fully assessed what their capabilities are. When you put money in a bank, the very nature of a bank or financial institution is that they are regulated. And so there are some rules by which they'll operate, which will not allow them to do certain things with your money, and your money is always safe. Part of financial literacy is also understanding where you can best place a significant amount of money. I'm not discouraging village banking at all. I'm simply saying we need to be aware of how much we can take as a risk in terms of putting money in a group saving versus putting money in a commercial bank or even a financial services provider who is regulated by the central bank. So there have also been issues with pyramid schemes where people have come together and said that they'll be able to put together crowdfunding, but without full awareness of the risks that are associated with that. Now, financial literacy then helps us to understand when you can take a particular risk and when not to. The other aspect of these kinds of schemes is that you borrow at very high interest rates. The highest interest rates that you would borrow at if you go to a formal financial services provider would be in the region of about maybe, let's say 40%, worst case 60% per annum, which translates to 5% per month. But if you go into these village banking schemes and other such initiatives, you find that you're paying at a minimum 10% per month, which comes to 100% per annum. And if compounded, is even higher. So what we're trying to encourage by telling people exactly what it costs to borrow this money is we're asking you, what business are you doing with this? And is it going to give you a higher return than what you'll be paying? Because then you're setting yourself up for failure. And if you set yourself up for failure, then what is going to happen tomorrow is that either you'll be unable to honor your commitment to your colleagues and friends, or you'll be unable to honor your commitment to a financial services provider. So this is why there's a lot of effort to drive financial literacy so that we can get everyone to a point where they fully understand the implications of the decisions that we take. And if you're running a business, you can only really take profit as the money that is available to do certain things with. Because if you touch the capital, then that means that you will not be able to keep your business going, and eventually it's unsustainable. So these are the areas where we have been driving a lot of the financial literacy initiatives. And I don't think you can even say that there's too much financial literacy going around, because we need that financial literacy. We need people to fully understand these financial decisions, because that's the blood life of any society. People need money, and if people have money, then they're able to do what they want to do on a daily basis. If you look at what has happened recently with COVID-19, COVID-19 was a health issue, but it also affected the economy. It meant that if people are not able to keep their day-to-day activities going, they're also unable to then keep their economic activities going. And so all these areas are areas that we look at as financial services providers to see how can we better participate and support the community to be able to get out of whatever the situation may be.
That's very true. A bit more on village banking. Not everyone knows the implications of their borrowing, of their supposed investments in the village banking groups. Are there any tips that you could give to people listening to us on how to go about village banking?
For village banking, what I have found works, and I have personally tried this. I discovered that when you join a village banking group, first of all, you need to know who you're dealing with. So if you are asked to join a group and you don't really know the people who are part of that group, I would encourage that you do not join that group, because you need to, at the very least, know who you're dealing with. That's the first tip. The second tip is keep track of your savings and your loans, because you cannot just trust that the treasurer will keep track of everything for you. I have actually discovered, for example, in one instance that I made a saving that was not tracked by the treasurer. And when I asked them, all they did was they changed the numbers. And I wondered, where did they get that money from? The third thing is, if you're going to go into village banking, try and bring in a financial services provider. Most of the financial services providers will have a product that will cater to village banking. As Zanako, for example, we have a village banking product. We also have various innovations. We have an innovation center within our head office, which also is partnered with Bongo Hive. So what we try to do is to identify what the opportunities are in the market and how we can better play to the requirements of our customers. So I'd encourage you to not just keep it informal with somebody holding cash in their house. It should be including a formal financial services provider who can also help and guide you. Because what tends to happen is that the formal financial services providers will give you a bit of guidance as regards know your customer guidelines and how to track and measure where the person can be found and how to follow up in the event of default. The final point that I would give as a tip for those who are participating in village banking is that try very hard not to overplay the interest rates, particularly for lending. Get an understanding of exactly what it is, what economic activity people are participating in, because you might just find that a particular group ends up getting into activities that could even border on illegal activities. So we try to encourage people to just stick to what works and to make it more of a savings focused rather than loan focused kind of initiative, because then you'll be able to have something for the rainy day, but you will not pay as high an interest rate as you would in the way that village banking sometimes turns into a pyramid scheme. Bank of Zambia has been very clear on this, and they have shared some guidelines as to how to safely participate in village banking, because we must encourage village banking. It's a form of financial inclusion, but we must encourage safe village banking. And that's why we have products that cater for this.
Great. Monica, what's your take on village banking?
So I actually have a very limited background on it, or very limited knowledge. So I think I'll defer to Mukwandi's comments on these.
Okay. All right, it's 15:50. We can begin our question and answer session. To those of you who are listening, if you have a question, feel free to leave it in the question and answer section. So let's get right into it. So the first question is from Nathan Chibesa. What results are expected of you, and what do your people need from you to contribute their full potential to your business? How do you attract and keep great people and inspire them to perform at their best in achieving business results? This should be for Monica.
And it's a great question, because I think it's a lot of people really struggle with that, struggle with creating a really good cohesive team, struggle with making people understand what performance is expected and where the company needs to go. And particularly as you get bigger, it becomes much more a key issue. When you're smaller, if you're 5 of you in your little room, it's probably a lot easier and you're all focused. But as you get bigger, it becomes even more important that, first of all, everybody's on the same page about the core values of the business, what you do in the business, and that how they are all important an important piece of the business to get the result. So it doesn't matter that you're just you're the receptionist, but actually you are very important because you are the first person they see when people come in. You're the first person they see to inquire about the product, inquire about the service. So she or he is very important and needs to be felt to understand how important her role or his role is, and how her role is achieving a result for the business. So it's often a lot about communicating to let people know where the company is going. Also, actually, I'll take a step back. It's also about hiring right? So I think as you begin to, hire more and more people, you have to be very clear about what kind of people you want, what kind of skills they bring. Sometimes it's not all about educational experience. Like half of the job is enthusiasm and really being enthusiastic to do the job, right? And we always look for people like that too, because they drive others, they drive performance, they show people that it can be done just with the right attitude. So I think it's definitely hiring right, definitely communicating with the team about expectations and bringing people along so they feel a part of the team in order to create good results and performance. It's something we at Java have not always got right, particularly in the early days. We're still trying to get the right fit. I think now in some teams we have it right. I think, like, for instance, my production team, you can imagine that we are the first ones to manufacture instant noodles in Zambia. So it means that everybody on the line didn't come with any background experience, but they do their job exceptionally well because they know they're probably the only one out of 18 million people who can do their job, right? So it's a real sense of pride for them. And we tell them that. We actually congratulate them when they hit key milestones on the production line, when there's less waste, things like that, because we know they are integral to making sure we do what we want to achieve.
Okay, so the next question is from Beatrice Mukamba. She says, "Hi ladies, I'm starting a new business and I would like some guidance on how I can price my products. I'm producing them myself from start." Monica, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So I think you have to start with basics. How much are you putting to make the product? You have to cost everything. That's even costing electricity. Are you paying someone a salary to make an additional person to help you to make the product? Are you buying a bottle? Are you buying labels? Are you transporting it to where it can be sold? So you have to cost everything. And then you also have to look at competition. So, I mean, you could cost it and it costs you 5 kwacha. But if your competition is with the costing and the margin are selling it out into retail at 2 kwacha, then there's a problem with your inputs, right? So that's why we always talk about really understanding your cost, cutting down your costs so that you're competitive, and then asking yourself that margin, how much more do I need to put onto the product to cover my costs, but also to give me some profit, some fat to reinvest in the business, to pay off my debt, those sorts of things. So there's no simple answer to it, except that you must always do cost plus margin. And sometimes it won't be right in the beginning because you're just starting and your costs may be right through the roof. But if you have a long-term play, you will get better with your costs. You also understand what your customer is willing to pay for it. Could you, adjust your costs so you're able then to charge, make a little bit more money? But you really have to understand what your cost base is and what people are willing to pay for your product.
Mukwandi, would you also like to give us some tips on maybe the financial aspect of starting a new business?
Typically, what happens with a new business is that 50% of new businesses fail in the first 3 years. So in order for your business to survive that time frame, you need to be very clear as to what it is that you're producing, at what cost, and whether you have the market for it. Oftentimes, people are able to produce, they may not necessarily have the market for it, or access to the market may not be as easy as they initially viewed it to be. So you need to have a complete end-to-end view of exactly how you're going to make money, because it's only when you're making money that you'll be able to sustain your business. So in view of the fact that the lady who's asked the question is saying she's manufacturing from scratch, it should be quite easy for her to identify how, from an end-to-end perspective, how much it will cost for her to produce. But what I didn't hear from her is a market view of who will be her customer, who will buy from her, and how she'll get to the market, because that's also a cost of doing business, and that needs to be factored in before she looks at the final price. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mukwandi, there's also another question for you. This one is from our anonymous attendee. How do you balance and maintain the relationships you have built in one brand when you switch over into a different company?
Are you sure that's for me?
Yes, the person mentioned Mukwandi. So I'm assuming you're talking about your background from NatSave to Zanaco, that part.
Okay, the nature of business is that as long as you're passionate about what you do and you actually are giving the best and working hard, you will succeed. So rather than to focus on carrying over clients from whatever previous life you may have had, I think the bigger opportunity is to raise the bar where it comes to the clients wherever you are. Then that will win you success wherever you are, because that then builds the network and it keeps things going. So there could be some loyal customers who follow you wherever you go, but that is unsustainable. You need to be able to build relationships wherever you are with whoever is there and whoever the potential customers are or clients are in that space. So that's the way that I've viewed it. I try very hard to not make it about me, but to make it about whatever the brand is that I'm working with at a particular point in time. And currently, that brand is Zanaco. And for me, my critical focus is on Zanaco clients and Zanaco's future.
I hope that answered their question. The next question is from Duke Makangela. How important is branding for your customers? This one is for both of you. So Monica, you can go first.
Yeah, so I think particularly if you're a new player in town, you don't have too much customer knowledge. People don't really know who you are, what you stand for. I think branding becomes really important. And actually, I'm sure there are several books and literature on this about how you really should invest in branding and marketing for customer awareness. I mean, now we know people make decisions on so many things in their lives when they are more knowledgeable, whether you're buying a house, whether you're buying shoes, whether you're buying groceries, right? You buy what you know and trust. If you know that this provider makes good food in an ethical way, uses products of the very best, you are more likely to use their products because they've told you that. They've told you of their awards and things like that. They've told you, they've given you an idea of what they stand for as well. You're probably more likely to buy those sorts of products. So I think it remains really important. And it's an important part of business strategy to make sure that you continue to be present and front of mind for your customers.
All right, thank you for sharing. Mukwandi, how important is branding for your customers?
Branding is experiential, because even if you sell a particular view of a brand, when people actually experience it, if it's any different, then it actually erodes the brand much more. So there is the saying in marketing about putting lipstick on a bulldog, it's still a bulldog. At the end of the day, branding has to be matched with the experience. And for me, that is a critical focus area. What is the experience of the brand and how does that build? It is said that if for you to grow a loyal group of supporters, you need to be able to consistently deliver superior performance. And superior performance is in terms of the actual experience of that brand. So whatever it is that you're looking to sell, whatever it is that you're looking to brand, be very clear as to what it is that is the experience that you're selling, because that is what will keep going for the future.
Thank you very much for that answer. Chimunya Mutello has a question for both of you. He or she says, considering the wisdom and experience you have attained thus far in your journeys, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger selves concerning business and entrepreneurship, what would that be? Mukwandi, would you like to start first?
Thanks. I will take the question first. I think if I were to give myself feedback, I would be less critical of myself. I think starting out in my career, I think I was a lot more critical of myself than I have become over the years. And that's because I try to be a bit more of a perfectionist. I still try to be in a way, but I think I'm a lot less critical of myself, and I would give myself a bit of space in terms of when I was in my 20s and even earlier, even in terms of school.
Okay. Monica, would you like to share?
Yeah, so I think I would have, I'll tell my younger self to have started business earlier. Definitely. I think, you know, you tend to stick to the same path because that's what you went to school for and that's where you have a comfort, but it may not have been something I 100% truly enjoyed, and I could have done something much earlier with a lot less stress. But but you know, you're also very afraid of starting off. So I think I would have told myself it would have been okay to start earlier.
Okay. Olivia Tutu has a question for Monica Musonda. What advice can you give to a startup business owner?
I think to just get on with it. I think a lot of the times people tend to overanalyze. So people are doing business plans, are doing spreadsheets, are making assumptions about the market, making a lot of assumptions. But sometimes, you know, you learn by doing, by starting. So, you know, just go out after, of course, you've done some initial work, and see if you can get one customer and then develop more knowledge about the business by doing. We have seen a lot of times that you know you are probably wrong about things because you made assumptions, and the best teacher is really the experience.
That's very true. Ngoza Munanjala has a question for Mukwandi. She says, hi Mukwandi, having spanned a banking career as far as you have, what are the must-knows and haves for someone who wants to join and thrive in the banking or financial sector?
Thanks, Ngoza. What I would suggest to anyone coming into the financial services sector is take the time to fully understand what you want to deliver and what you want to gain in your career. A lot of the time, what tends to happen is that we go into a particular role with a particular view of what it means to be in the financial services sector without fully understanding to what extent is it a fit for you. And I have seen a lot of people not able to adjust to financial services because it's quite exacting and it can be quite brutal. And so I would encourage anyone who wants to come into the financial services sector to self-introspect and identify why is it that you want to join the financial services sector. And if it's really a passion for you, then you will succeed whichever way you take it. Just go for it.
Okay, so we have another question from an anonymous attendee. They're asking for both of you to recommend some books for young entrepreneurs. So Monica, are there any books you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, there are quite a few actually. I just finished reading two. One of them is I can't even remember the title. It's about the Nike story. I'm just trying to remember what the title is. This is the story about the biography of the gentleman who started the Nike shoe brand. And what was really interesting for me about it, it showed me how long it took for him to actually have liftoff for the business. He was going to Japan, and someone was making Nike shoes for him. And actually, the first time when he was going, he didn't even have the brand name Nike. He was almost sued when he had to change his supplier in Japan for it. But he was up against the big boys, Adidas, and all the sort of very well-known shoe brands. But after almost like 15 years of it, that's when and look at how big Nike is today. And he trusted the person. I'm just trying to think what the name of the book is. I can't believe I forgot the name of the book. And the second one is Understanding the Why, and it's a famous sort of psychology.
Hi, Monica. One of our attendees has actually just reminded us, sorry to cut you short, that the name is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yes, exactly that. So the second book I was talking about was Understanding the Why, and it really is a really great book because it's got nothing to do with entrepreneurship. It's really about this introspection. Whatever you do, understanding why you're doing it, because it will get you through the hardest times. If you understand why you are, going to school for an MBA, or why you are starting a business, or why you are continuing to work what you do, understanding the why, so you can get through the journey.
Mukwandi, would you like to share your favorite book?
My favorite book is David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. In fact, any book by Malcolm Gladwell is good. Outliers, any of the above. But the reason why David and Goliath is particularly relevant for me is that a lot of the time we underestimate our own capabilities. And this encourages you to understand yourself first and what your capabilities are, and then to get out there and get it going. So I would encourage you to read that book. Another book that, to my mind, is quite effective if you want to do anything, get anything done, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a really old book, but it actually does work because it does help to change mindsets and get you into a positive view of getting things done. Because a lot of the time we tend to just not get things done, and it starts with getting things done to be successful. Excellence is about consistency and being able to just get up in the morning every day and get the job done. And so this is a book that I would encourage as well.
All right. I hope you guys have taken down the names of the books. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is from Gershom Martin Chola. He's asking, I think this is directed to Monica. Is there a point when the food industry can get saturated?
The food industry is really big, right? There's the food industry, contains beverages, contains all sorts of food. So I think maybe if he was a little bit more specific, I think in certain sectors of the food industry can, very rightfully so. So a great example right now is the water sector. I mean, there are so many brands, but you do see a new brand coming onto the market, which has completely changed it. But if you asked players last year, everyone would be like, there are too many water brands. But guess what? Somebody came through and has completely shattered the water sector. And it's really making a difference. Consumers are actually changing which water brand they're buying. So I think it's an interesting lesson, and you can see it happening just before your eyes.
All right. This one is from another anonymous attendee. This one is also for Monica. What are some of the key lessons or practices you took from your 16 years of corporate law into your entrepreneurial journey?
So like once a lawyer, always a lawyer, right? I read things twice. I overread things. I don't sign anything unless I know. I ask questions, I interrogate them. What does this mean? Okay, how do you terminate it? If I'm not happy, can I return it? And I think that's one of the key things which came out of being a lawyer. I also, I negotiate everything because you should, right? And I always feel like even with my bankers, I'll be like, but why? Why do I need to keep it actually? What does this mean? Why do I have to? And it's something I think a lot of the time people accept what they're first of all given, but what's the worst that someone can say if you try to negotiate? No, right? So those are some of the things I took. I'm still very detail oriented. I do tend to also micromanage, which is not always necessarily positive. but it's very much my nature because I came from that sort of legal background. Yeah.
All right. I hope that answers your question. We have a question that is for both of you from Maureen Nenechi. She asks, what tips can be given to those who desire to be top executives in big corporations? Mukwandi, would you like to go first?
To be perfectly honest, there is no single formula that one can say, if you do this, then it guarantees a particular level of success. There are a number of factors that lead to particular opportunities coming to pass. But I believe that if you work hard and you're consistent, then what is due to you will come to you. That's a philosophy that I operate on, regardless of whether it's big business, big corporations, or any other. As long as you're consistent and you stay true to yourself, I believe that eventually what is due to you will come to you.
Monica, would you like to share?
I was going to say ditto. I think I do think that for women, for many women, it is about we work a lot harder because the environment sometimes, particularly in industries where there are very few women, we find a lot of the women put a lot more effort, put a lot of time, excellence into managing key relationships, into overperforming, are clearly noticed and are clearly remembered by those in decision-making positions. And I think that is what I also think it's also about ensuring you maintain integrity, which is now a very key issue for many people right now, about ensuring that you deliver and you have good values about how you work, because people should remember you for your work and your good performance and not for other things.
So, Monica, you talked a bit about having few females in some industries. Have either of you faced imposter syndrome, where you always feel the need, like you're not necessarily, you're not supposed to be there, but have any of you encountered imposter syndrome?
It's an interesting one. So I've got to say, throughout my career, you've had it in very many different ways. So you often, when I started my career, I was often the only Black female in the room. So you got somewhat treated, almost as if you shouldn't have been there. But you never knew it's because you're a woman or it's because you were Black. I'm not even Black local. I was Black foreign. So I had lots of issues I had to deal with. But again, I think that it's something, particularly for women, we still have to battle with. I think what we're seeing a lot more now is that because there are many more women coming through, it should hopefully get better. I think people will definitely accept that we are of equal or not sometimes better intelligence, that you do have something to share on the table. I remember when I first sat on a board, my first board meeting, I was trying to talk, but the chairman thought that my contribution was not necessarily going to be valuable to the discussion. And I had to ask a mentor of mine how I would learn to politely interrupt him to get my view across. I had to remember to maintain, these issues around values and integrity, not to embarrass the chairman because he was clearly a very senior person in the industry, but to make him see that in fact I was on the board for right reasons and I did have something to contribute. So I've now been on board, several boards for almost 10 years now, so have a lot of experience at it, and now chair boards. So I do make it a conscious effort myself to make sure other women feel comfortable enough as well, because you do sometimes have one woman that can make it also very difficult for others, right? So I think it's something we have to appreciate comes with the territory. Things are definitely better than they used to be, but still issues around it.
Mm-hmm. Mukwandi, have you ever faced imposter syndrome?
Yes, any woman in the corporate world will have faced that. And I think I should mention another book which should help any young ladies who are getting out there into the corporate world. Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. That book helps to address, and it also makes you realize that actually you're not alone in this journey, because our society tends to take a particular view of women in the boardroom and women in the workplace. And generally speaking, because if you think about it, a century ago, where women were and where women are today, it's night and day. And so you will expect to face certain issues where it comes to people accepting your position. But I think one of the things that has helped to help me to address this is to understand that it's not personal. It doesn't really matter who is on the other side, as long as it's a woman. There's certain people who will view things in a particular way. So we work twice as hard, as Monica has said. That's true. We prove our integrity every day. That's true. But beyond that, what we need to understand is that we do bring something to the table, and whatever positions we're in, it's on the basis of merit. And once you realize that, it becomes less and less relevant as to how people treat you, and more relevant as to how you're able to then deliver value. In some instances, you may find that you don't necessarily have to speak. You can send an email and still get the same outcome. You find other ways to communicate so that that value then comes through. And then over time, people begin to shift and change their approach towards you.
We have a question from
Hi, Elizabeth. Just to remind you, we have 3 minutes left until we close the Q&A section.
Okay, so this will be the last question. So how can women handle the entrepreneurship and work chaos? This is for both of you. Mukwandi, would you like to go first?
There is a theory about chaos, that out of chaos, there is always order. It's actually a mathematical theory, the chaos cosmos theory. And it's one that says that regardless of whatever chaos there may be around you, identify a clear pattern and you'll be able to then create order. There's always order out of disorder. And so within the chaos of whatever work-life balance or whatever it is that may be creating chaos in whoever's life, whether male or female, identify the pattern that will give you some form of order and grounding. And on the basis of that, then you can grow into your greatness, so to speak. So whether that is through spirituality and Christianity, or whatever it is that then allows you to create some sort of grounding out of that chaos, it will give you that opportunity to settle things down and focus on what's important and get that done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Monica?
Yeah, no, I agree with Mukwandi on all that, and it's really important. I think, and it's not just entrepreneurship. I think life is just like that, right? It's whether you're working. I mean, there will be a lot of pressure. There will be instances which you cannot control. I mean, for instance, this year we had COVID. Nobody knew. No one had the perfect answer about how to handle life in the pandemic. So I mean, I think it is really assessing it, understanding what you need to get through it, finding that balance. And sometimes it may take longer. Sometimes you may need some support. You may need to speak to others. You may need to read. You may need to pray. You may need to do whatever it is that will get you through it, right? So, but I think chaos is a way of a fact of life. I have come to realize that, because I remember I used to say, oh, when I get to 5 years old, everything will be fine. It will just be calm and it will just be operating like normal. And it was never the case. There was another crisis when we were 5, then another one when we were 6, another one when we were 7. So every year there's something, right?
Yes. It's definitely always chaos. And on that note, we have come to the end of our question and answer session. I will now hand over to Sekayi FundaFunda-Lung, who is Innovation Lead at Bongo Hire. Sekayi?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to Mukwandi and to Monica for being here today. I think it was wonderful to hear from 2 phenomenal women, and I know you hear this a lot, but you exemplify what it means to be a leader in the world today. And thank you for sharing at such depth. A lot of what you touched on today, we seek to instill and explore during our various programs at Bongo Hive. You talked about understanding why, you talked about branding and value propositions. And at Bongo Hive, we always like to say that we work with great minds. So I'm proud to say that we've worked with both women as Bongo Hive, whether directly or by proxy, on some of our student-focused programming, from the Zanaco University Innovation Challenge in 2019 to the Soul for X SDG and COVID-19 meetups in 2020. Now, for those of you that don't know who we are, and when we talk about Bongo Hive, you heard both Monica and Mukwandi talk about Bongo Hive. Bongo Hive is Zambia's first technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship hub. And over the past 9 years, we have implemented programs supporting entrepreneurs, from those that just have an idea and a burning desire to create something and create value, all the way to established businesses or growth stage businesses that are looking to secure investment. And at Bongo Hive, we see everything in terms of a pipeline and the way that various elements come together, the way that they feed into one another. And in recognizing the challenges that young people often face in creating businesses for impact, right? Or creating value for their employers, we established a couple of years ago Bongo Hive X. Now, Bongo Hive X is our flagship program that was designed to propel student-led innovation. And we seek to be the ultimate platform for students to contribute to solving grand socioeconomic challenges and realizing their entrepreneurial potential. And we work with students to develop critical thinking, to develop problem-solving skills. And we use various tools and techniques like human-centered design, going deeply into research and what that means. And we do this in collaboration with academia, with corporate institutions like Zanaco, with nonprofit organizations, with government, quasi-government, with entrepreneurs, like Monica Musonda. And therefore, we're quite glad and excited to be working with student associations like Unzabeca. And I think at this point, I really must recognize their efforts, their continued efforts to upskill students through initiatives such as these webinars. And Mukwandi, you had mentioned at the time you were at Unza not having opportunities like this. So I think we must recognize how brilliant it is that Unzabeca has seen that this is needed and creating the platform for this to happen. And as Bongo Hive, we are quite thrilled then to come in and say, okay, how can we enhance your efforts? How can we make sure that you're reaching more people, you're having richer conversations, you're learning more skills and so on. And to everybody that's on the call today, I just want to encourage you, and this is something we're always saying within our programs, specifically to students. Spend some time thinking deeply, exploring the problems that exist around you. And both Mukwandi and Monica have touched on this. Looking end to end, what is needed, what are the problems, what's going on around me, and how can I be of value? So that you can then build viable solutions that change the world. If you have any questions about who we are as Bongo Hive, how you can get involved in our student-focused programming, please reach out to Rhoda, and I think she'll share her contact information in the chat section, so that if you have any questions, you can go ahead and find out from us. But thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts again, Mukwandi and Monica. Rhoda, Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you so much for that final word, Sekayi. So as we come to closing the event for today, I'd just like to remind each and everyone to share your feedback with us. We encourage you to share your thoughts with us on different social media platforms. We encourage you to please follow Unzabeca Unzabeca on Twitter. That's Unza_Beca. And also follow Bongo Hive. Please share your feedback and your thought away from this session. Was it inspiring? We hope that you'll be able to use the hashtags Women's Table Talk. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the participants. Thank you so much to all the attendees. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.